let's welcome the first speaker.
Okay, so can everybody hear me? Yeah, okay. So it's a very such an honor to be the first to present, and I'm Yu Hao from Stanford University, and the title of our paper is kind of, as you can see, is very kind of descriptive. So I'll just delve into the topic. Yeah, so today I want to talk about our recent effort at Stanford on improving knowledge-based population systems, or more specifically, slot filling systems in the KPP setting by using a new neural network model and a new large-scale data set that we created at Stanford. Okay, so to give you some background, what is knowledge-based population? So knowledge-based population deals with the problem of populating a knowledge base with triples of subject, object, and relations by reading a collection of documents. For example, by reading this paragraph shown here, a system should be able to identify that Lisa Dillman, it's a spouse of Mike Penner. And so in a very similar context, a slot filling system should be able to fill in the slots of the object entity, while the subject entity and the slot is given in the setting. So today, even though a lot of deep learning systems, deep learning models have been extremely successful at different NLP tasks, through several years of participating in the Tech KPP knowledge-based population challenges, we at Stanford routinely found that deep learning systems has been less effective at the slot filling tasks. And as a result, many of the state-of-the-art slot filling systems still heavily rely on handcrafted patterns or traditional classifiers that are trained on distantly supervised or induced data set. So we think that there are mainly two reasons behind this. So first, we think that existing neural network models tend to be insufficiently tailored to the relation extraction task. And second, we think that a large-scale and fully supervised data set for slot filling tasks will finally benefit the study of these neural network models for slot filling or relation extraction. Therefore, in this study, we mainly focus on three parts. So first, we proposed a new, what we called a position-aware attention model that we found to be very effective in for the relation extraction task. And secondly, we created a new large-scale supervised data set, which we call TechRed, that is tailored for the relation extraction and slot filling setting. And thirdly, we show through extensive experiments that the combination of this new neural network model and the data set markedly improved the performance of a state-of-the-art slot filling system. And so first, let's talk about this neural model. So slot filling systems are usually pipelines of different modules. And at the core of this pipeline system, there's usually a relation extraction model that classifies the relation when the context and the entity pairs are given. So we believe that a good relation extractor should have the following abilities. So first, because of the contexts are usually long where the relation occur in real-world corpus, we think that the relation extractor should be identify relevant context from irrelevant ones. And secondly, we think that unlike naive sentence classification problem, the relation extractor should base the classification or its judgment on not only the sentence, but also the entity information, which include the type of the entities and the positions where the entity occur. So in order to model these aspects in the sentence or the context, we therefore propose a new neural network architecture, which we call a position-aware attention model. So in this model, at the beginning of this architecture, we have embedding layers where we obtain the embedding of each word, and then along with their relative position to the subject and object entities, and then we obtain the position encoding vectors by using a embedding matrix for all position numbers. So we have the word embeddings and the position embeddings. Next, we feed the word embeddings into an LSTM encoder to obtain the hidden states. And then here we found that the deeper level LSTM, such as a two-layer network, will work better than a single-layer network. And then after the LSTM computation, we define a summary vector Q to be the last hidden state of the LSTM encoder. This vector, therefore, captures the information of the entire sentence. So then next, we define an attention calculation on each word in the context, which is conditioned on 4 elements. So the first one is the hidden state of the current word, hi, and then the summary vector of the entire context, q, and then the next 2 are the relative positions of the current word to the subject entity, piece s, and the position to the object entity, po. So then we use a standard multi-layer perceptron attention calculation, and then the attention weights are calculated based on this using a softmax. These weights, we think these weights capture the relative contribution of the current word to the relation representation. So then we kind of blend the hidden states from the LS encoder using this attention weights to form our relation representation Z. And then vector Z is fed into a linear layer followed by a softmax layer to obtain the class distribution, which here we use the 41 different relation types in TAC KBP setting, plus a new special no relation slot for negative predictions. And this model is then trained to minimize the standard cross-entropy loss on the training data set. So this is basically a very intuitive model architecture. And then apart from this basic architecture, we also found that a few augmentations are very effective for the relation extraction task. So the first one, we use what we call a word dropout technique, where during training, we randomly sample a word according to a probability p, and then where p is a predefined parameter. And then we set the randomly sampled word to Ank token. And we believe that this trick helps to balance the auto vocabulary distribution between the training time and testing time of the model. Next, we applied what we call an entity masking trick. So instead of using the original entities during training, we masked the entities using special tokens that indicates the entity type and whether it is a subject or an object entity. We think that this trick finally helps to prevent the model to overfit to specific entities during training and helps the model to learn type checking information for the relation extraction. So lastly, we found that additional linguistic information to be helpful for the task. So during pre-processing, we obtained the part of speech tags and name entity recognition tags using Stanford Core NLP. And then we concatenate the part of speech and NER embeddings with the original word embeddings. So we then use the concatenate vector for the LSTM computation instead of the original word embeddings. And so as a summary, we basically empirically found these few tricks to be very effective for all the neural network models that we implemented. So we really recommend everyone to try these tricks in their own implementation of neural relation extractors. Okay, so that's the model we have. And now let's move to the dataset part. So for the relation extraction study, the CME-Val dataset has long been a very popular dataset that really helps the development of many different neural network models. However, we found this dataset to be suboptimal from a few aspects. First, it contains only about 10,000 examples, and this is much smaller than many state-of-the-art datasets for other NLP tasks, such as the Stanford Natural Language Inference dataset, or the, as many of you know, the Stanford Question Answering dataset, which is super hot recently. And then, secondly, we found that this dataset contains relations that are very difficult from what we see in newswire or web forum data. And these relations are sometimes even difficult for human beings to recognize. For example, for this example here, can you guess what the relation is between the two different entities? So it's actually an instrument-agency relation, which is not very intuitive for human beings. Motivated by these thoughts, we created the TAC relation extraction dataset, or TAC-RAD, using cross-reversing. And we built this dataset for relation extraction and slot filling tasks, and with the specific goal of tailor this dataset for the TAC KBP slot filling task. So during the creation of this dataset, we have 4 explicit goals. So now let's talk about them in detail. So the first goal is that we want this data set to be large scale. As a result, so we have all the mechanical Turkers help us annotate about 120,000 examples with about 75 examples in the training data set. So this is actually an order of magnitude larger than the existing data set for relation extraction research. And secondly, we want this data set to come from real-world corpus instead of like web crawling or using patterns to form the corpus. Therefore, we choose to draw the sentences from the TechKBP 2009 and 2014 corpus. It is shown in this figure, the average sentence length in TechRed is almost double of that in SimEval. And therefore, we expect TechRed to provide a more complex context for relation extraction research and therefore be a more kind of challenging data set than existing ones. So third, our third goal is to fully annotate all the negative examples that we encounter in the data collection process. And we create a special no relation label for these negative examples. So in total, we found that there are about 78% negative examples in TechRed, and then these negative examples cover all entity types that you can see in TechKBP. So we believe that this number reflects the true fraction of negative examples that a system can see in a real TechKBP task. And as we will show, this is actually crucial for improving the performance of a slot filling system by reducing the false positive predictions in the system output. So finally, we make TechRed fully supervised with annotations on both the entity span and the relation types. So in total, TechRed contains 41 TechKBP slots plus a special no relation slot. So we have included more examples of the data set and full detail on the data collection process in the paper. So, but due to time constraint, please refer to the paper if you are interested in knowing more about this data set. Okay, so after talk about the model and the data set, we want to talk about like how we evaluate our model and data set and actually obtain the state of the improved slot filling performance. So we run two sets of experiments. For the first set of experiments, we study how well our position-aware attention model can do on TechRed. And then we compare it against a series of baseline traditional and neural architectures that were previously found effective for the relation extraction task. So for all models in this task, we retrain these models with TechRed training data set and then evaluate on the TechRed test set. And then for the second set of experiments, we are interested in knowing whether our model and the data can actually improve the slot filling task, which is our original goal. And then we want to compare it against the state-of-the-art slot filling models. Yeah, so for both of the tasks, we use the following models as our baseline systems. First, we use Stanford's 2015 TechKBP winning system. And this system is a very strong system, which mainly contains two relation extractors. The first one is a pattern-based system that uses both token sequence patterns and dependency tree structure patterns. And then the second one is a logistic regression classifier that is trained on about 2 million bootstrap training examples that is carefully tuned for the slot filling tasks. Next, we also want to compare our system with some baseline neural architectures. So the first one is we include a convolutional neural network-based architecture with some special positional encoding vectors as well. And then secondly, we compare it with a recurrent neural network model over the shortest dependency path between two entities, which is found to be an effective model by previous research. And then thirdly, we compare it against a simple two-layer LSTM baseline as well. So for all these baseline systems, we follow the same pre-processing and evaluation procedure for fair comparison. So here are some of the results. So for the first task, the relation extraction task, we found that traditional systems has actually very different balances on precision and recall. So for example, patterns have better precisions over recall, while logistic regression classifiers are better at recall. So then by ensembling the logistic regression and pattern systems, we can actually get a improved F1 for the traditional slot filling relation extraction systems. And then here are the results for the neural classifiers. We found neural systems also achieve very different balances of precision and recall. And this finding is actually very consistent across different experiment runs. For example, we found that CNN-based systems have higher precisions, while LSTM can give better recall. And this is intuitive if we think about the filters in the CNN model to be some kind of fuzzy n-gram patterns over the context. So we also found that all the neural models, when we train it on TechRed, outperformed the traditional system. And surprisingly, we found that a simple two-layer LSTM network that we implemented actually outperforms all other neural models, baseline neural models on this large-scale data set. Yeah. So finally, we found our model generates the best overall recall and F1 score. So with a 3.9-point absolute improvement over the best baseline system that we have. And then ensembling the 5 different runs helps us push the number up. So next, we run the TechKBB slot filling evaluation. In this setting, the input to the slot filling system is 50K documents and a series of 2-hop queries. And then the system should output the slot fillers. So we divide the slots into hop 0 slots and hop 1 slots based on its distance to the subject entity. To give you some explanation, a hop 1 slot is obtained on top of a hop 0 prediction, so we can expect that the error from hop 0 slots can easily propagate to hop 1 predictions. So because slot filling systems are pipeline systems of different modules, so to have a fair comparison, we use Stanford's winning system as the base system, and then we replace the relation extractor with different models in our experiments. And then here are some of the results. And we found that patterns, again, achieve the best precision. So yeah, you just can't beat patterns on precision. So, and then the 2015 winning system is trained on 2 million examples. But we found that by training the traditional system only on TechRed dataset, it can actually achieve very close results to the winning system. And we think this proves the quality of the dataset itself. And then again, our system beats all the baseline numbers on the slot filling task. And when comparing the relation, the neural extractor to the logistic extraction baseline, we achieve a 8.4 points F1 improvement. And then when compared the best system with the 2015 winning system, we achieve a 4.5 points F1 improvements. And then we run some further analysis. For example, by running the ablation study, we found that the attention component plays a very important role in this model. And then we divide the development set by sentence length, and we found that when the sentence gets longer, performance of the logistic regression system and the CNN-based model drops drastically. And then, but the shortest dependency path model, it's least sensitive to the sentence length. However, it is not as good at classifying short sentences. And then our model basically achieves the best performance on almost all lengths. And then we investigate the importance of negative examples. So when we increase the number of negative examples in the training, we found that hop 0 precision increases drastically, but hop 0 recall almost stays unchanged. Therefore, as a result, we found that the hop 0 and hop F1 keeps increasing by adding more negative examples. So then lastly, we try to visualize the attention weights, and we found that the model actually learns to focus on very informative parts of the model, but sometimes still make some mistakes. Okay, so to summarize, in this work, we propose a new position-aware attention model for the relation extraction task, and then we simultaneously created new large-scale supervised data set, which is called TechRed. And then our experiments show that both our model and our data set are effective to improve the state-of-the-art of slot filling results. And then finally, we want to make our code available. And then we are currently in the process of making TechRed dataset publicly available via LDC because of the copyright of the underlying text. And we hope TechRed could finally become a useful resource and benchmark for the research community. So we are happy to know about how you are going to use TechRed for your research, and please let us know. And yeah, and basically I have a few minutes, so I'd like to take some questions. Thank you.
Any questions?
Alessandro Moschetti from Qatar Computing Research Institute. So thank you very much for your presentation, your work. I have a question on the data set. So before you started to say that the relation extraction, it's a very complex task to annotate. And I agree with this. So I'm wondering what is the performance of the Tarker on annotating this. Another more technical question is the fact that you are annotating all negative examples, but you know that you have to pairwise all possible entities at a certain distance. So this can be huge. So what was your limitation in the selection of the possible negative examples?
So I'm actually not sure. Like, could you repeat your final, like, the final part of the
So
question?
basically, when you build a negative example for relation extraction, you have to select pairs of entities.
Yeah.
And you have to scan all possible pairs in the text. So if the entities are at the distance 5, you have a certain number of negative examples.
Yeah.
But if you select any possible distance, you can have a huge number on negative pairs.
Yeah.
And so this is a lot of data. So I'm interested on how you solve the problem.
Right. So there are actually more details there, but so the data collection process is divided into two different phases. For one of the phase, we use the TAC KBP data set where so the pairs are actually pre-labeled by previous like annotators from NIST or TAC, so it's the organizers. And then we make use of that part of the data set. So that part is already kind of like subsampled or selected by human annotators. So we reuse that part of the effort. And then for the second part, we actually do some like subsampling of the relation, like the entity pairs in the real world data set. So to kind of reduce the effort that we need from the Turkers. But for more details, like how we do this kind of subsampling, you can refer to the paper. We include all the details in the paper.
Sure. The first question was, how was it the agreement between Tarkers? So do you have actually a very good agreement?
Sorry?
Agreement between Tarkers.
Yeah. We did. We calculate the, we subsampled some of these Turker annotations, and we have our experts to actually validate like 370 examples, and then we calculate the inter-annotator agreement and the accuracy on the Turkers. And also, if a Turker gets very low accuracy on their previous annotations, we would just kind of remove the Turker from the final results. Yeah, thank you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Thanks for the interesting talk. I also have a question about the negative annotation data. It seems like that's very costly to produce, where you could just naively assume that any example that's not annotated, that tuple is explicitly negative, and you could subsample from that and make a negative data set. Did you compare against a baseline like that? Because you make claims that explicitly annotated negative examples were crucial to your performance.
Right. So your question is whether we compare our system with the a naive baseline where the negative examples is randomly sampled, like.
Yeah. So why not just assume that stuff that's not positively annotated is negative and use that instead? Seems a lot cheaper.
So that part is actually in our baseline slot filler system. So the baseline slot filler system, which is trained on the 2 million examples, actually use the randomly sampled negative examples, and we found that our system actually beats the baseline system.